This is CNN Breaking News.
We have breaking news coming into CNN. The Israeli military says Iranian forces on the Syrian side of the Golan Heights fired rockets at Israeli targets tonight. Let's go to our Pentagon correspondent, Barbara Starr. Barbara, what are you hearing?
Good evening, Wolf. This happened a short time ago. Israeli Defense Forces confirming that they logged 20 missiles from Iranian Quds forces fired into northern Israel in the Golan Heights. Go back a minute. Iranian Quds forces. That is critical here to what is happening. These are forces of the Iranian regime. They are the most militant forces of the Revolutionary Guard of Iran, which already is the most, shall we say, militant element of the Iranian forces. So you have a good deal of concern emerging here. 20 of their rockets fired into northern Israel. The Israeli defense system known as Iron Dome firing back. Israelis tonight warning they may take further action against Iran. Wolf?
All right, stand by, Barbara. Oren Lieberman is in Jerusalem for us. What are you hearing from the Israelis, Oren?
Wolf, I just got off the conference call with IDF spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Sarikas. As Barbara just mentioned, more than 20 rockets fired, and I will tell you that there are still explosions we hear in the distance. Whether that's more Iron Dome interceptions or rockets hitting the ground, we have yet to find out, but there is still explosions that we're hearing in the distance, at least a half a dozen or so in the last few minutes. On top of that, we've heard drones flying all night, long before we got the heads up from the IDF that rockets have been fired at the Golan Heights. We've been hearing these drones, perhaps surveillance drones, flying over the area. Let me reiterate, about an hour ago, the Israeli military said 20 rockets were fired at Israeli military sites in the Golan Heights. Iron Dome intercepted a number of those. So far, the IDF, the Israeli military, says damage is limited and there have been no casualties. But that continues at this point, and that is obvious again, Wolf, because we're hearing these explosions in distance. So whatever attack was coming seems to be ongoing at this point. In terms of an Israeli military response, the IDF says they have responded but have not been more specific about the form of that response, number of strikes in that response, or the targets in that response. That information, they say, will be coming at some point this evening. But so far, as Barbara mentioned, and as we're hearing right now, more than 20 rockets have been fired from the Quds Force, the militant section of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, at Israel. A number of those rockets have been intercepted, and as we're hearing in the distance, we continue to hear these explosions every few minutes or so, perhaps Iron Dome interceptions of more rockets or rockets themselves landing in the Golan Heights. We'll get that information to you as soon as possible, but whatever had started here about an hour ago continues at this point. Wolf, we'll get you more information as soon as we can.
You know, very quickly, Oren, I know I'm now told you're on the Golan Heights yourself. Usually when Israel detects rockets coming in from across the border, sirens are going off, warning people to go into shelters. Has that happened based on what you've seen?
There have been warnings that rockets have come over. It's very common for Israelis to have a red alert app that gives them a heads up that rockets are going off or that sirens are going off. We have gotten that alert. We spoke with the Israeli military. They said they have not issued instructions to head the bomb shelters, but we know yesterday the Israeli military in the Golan Heights and in northern Israel was on high alert and bomb shelters were opened. In that sense, this is a response from the Iranians that Israel very much expected. There was also a reported strike near Damascus that Syria has attributed to the Israeli Air Force. So the retaliation comes not only for that recent strike, but also for other recent strikes in Syria that Iran and Syria have blamed on Israel. But to your last question, there has not yet, as far as we know, been instructions to head to bomb shelters at this point. The Israeli military assesses that the damage is limited right now, and there have been no casualties. But as I've said, we continue to hear drones flying. We hear explosions every few minutes. The attack may very well still be ongoing, which means the Israeli military will still have a continued response.
You know, Barbara, yesterday you reported that Pentagon officials were deeply concerned that as a result of the president's decision to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal, the Iranians could strike out against Israel. What else are you hearing about that?
Well, Wolf, you and I were talking about that just 24 hours ago, and we are 24 hours past President Trump opting out, if you will, of the Iranian agreement. Not a surprise to U.S. military intelligence that this has occurred. They have been watching this entire situation really around the clock for the last several days as there has been escalating rhetoric between Israel and Iran. Hard to see this tonight as anything else than an episode of open conflict between the Israelis and the Iranian regime. The Israelis, in fact, the IDF, as part of their statement, I want to read it to you, said a short time ago, the IDF views this event with great severity and remains prepared for a wide variety of scenarios. This is the Iranians directly attacking Israeli territory. Expect to see an Israeli response. And in fact, earlier today, a U.S. defense official confirmed to me that last night, airstrikes inside Syria that no one had claimed credit for were actually believed to be the work of Israeli forces as they once again went after Iranian weapons sites inside Syria. We have seen these Israeli strikes inside Syria. The Israelis are not publicly admitting them, but it is well understood that these airstrikes are being conducted by Israel to try and take out these Iranian weapons sites so they cannot attack inside Israel. I think you better than anybody, Wolf, would know that the Israelis are not going to sit back after tonight's events. We should expect by every measure to see additional Israeli military action against the Iranians. And in the middle of all of this, the U.S. military extremely concerned about the escalation of a potential emerging conflict tonight, Wolf.
Yeah, it's a deeply concerning development. And Oren Lieberman, if you're still there with me, I know you're up on the Golan Heights. You know the Israelis are going to respond. They're going to respond very severely to these Iranian rocket attacks. What else are you hearing?
You're exactly right there, Wolf. The Israelis will absolutely respond. And whether they've admitted to strikes or not, Syria and Iran have pinned a number of strikes, about 5 or 6 strikes in recent months, on the Israeli military, carrying out strikes on Syrian military bases that have Iranian forces. At the very least, it seems apparent that Israel knows where it wants to strike, knows where it has Iranian forces in Syria, so those targets appear to be picked out, and we know again from the military that the strikes, the response that is, has begun at this point. And from the indications we're seeing here, that response could continue. We haven't heard an explosion since we got on the phone with you, but we heard in the moments before that, the minutes before that, and we continue to hear drones flying throughout the area. It's something we've heard all night. So as Barbara pointed out, Israel has very much been expecting a response, and it's not just in response to Trump pulling out of the Iran deal. That response was expected for a number of these strikes in Syria that the Iranians and the Syrians pinned on Israel. So this was something that was very much in the making, something that was very much expected. As for the targets that were struck, the hallmark of the strikes that we've seen have been Syrian military bases with an Iranian presence, and I would very much expect that would be the target. Again, whether it's just one military base or a number of them, that we'll see as we get more information from the Israeli military on where they've pinpointed their responses.
All right, Oren Lieberman up on the Golan Heights. Be careful up there. And Barbara Starr at the Pentagon. Thanks to both of you.